I'm calling the October 23rd, 2025 meeting of the Bloomington Historic Preservation Commission to order. Tonda, will you call the roll?
Certainly. Duncan Campbell. Karen Duffy. Here. Drew Heron.
Here.
Jack Baker.
Here.
Jeremy Hackard.
Here.
Ernesto Castaneda. Reynard Cross.
Here.
Sam DeSoler. Melanie Dusner.
Here.
Daniel Schlegel.
Here.
We have quorum.
All right, next up is approval of the minutes. Do we have a motion?
I'll move to approve the minutes.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. We'll go ahead and take a vote on the minutes. Jack Baker.
Yes.
Jeremy Hackard.
Abstain.
Ernesto Castaneda is not here. Renard Cross.
Yes.
Sam DeSoler's not here. Melanie Dusner.
Yes.
Daniel Schlegel.
Yes.
Minutes have been approved.
Excellent. Next up, we have staff review for COAs.
We have one staff reviewed certificate of appropriateness tonight. That is item COA 2569. The address is 210 East Gilbert Drive in the Matlock Heights Historic District. Petitioner is Mary Ellen May. This is a 1955 ranch house that has undergone some exterior changes to fenestration and is set back from the street behind a stacked stone wall. The proposal is for the installation of an array of rooftop solar panels. Staff approved COA 2569. The proposed rooftop solar array places panels on contours that fit the pitch of the roof. Because the current roofing material is asphalt shingle, there is no additional concern about damaging or obscuring more significant character-defining roofing material. So we'll move on to commission-reviewed certificates of appropriateness.
So in this section for the COAs and demolition delays for each item, the Historic Preservation Program Manager will first present a staff report. We will then hear if the petitioner has any additional information, followed by a round of questions from each commissioner. We ask that petitioners, the public, and commissioners refrain from speaking until addressed by the chair, unless a question is directly addressed to them. If a member of the public or a petitioner wishes to comment, please raise your hand until recognized by the chair, me. Once a motion is made, we will then open up discussion of the item for members of the commission. We encourage all commissioners, petitioners, and members of the public to be civil and respectful at all times. Right, Noah?
Our first commission-reviewed item of the evening for 212 West Kirkwood Avenue in the Courthouse Square Historic District. Petitioner is John Walker. The petitioner and I met earlier today, and he requested that this item be continued, as he'd like to make some changes to his proposal. So the petitioner, I believe, is not present tonight.
So if they're not present, it automatically continues.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay. Moving on to the next item, COA 2571. Oh no, I got the wrong address there. Shoot.
It's in the...
It's in the agenda, okay. Address is 407 East 4th Street in the Greater Restaurant Row Historic District. Petitioner is David Kamen. This is a request for retroactive approval for the installation of a chain link fence at the side of the property.
I see here.
Is the petitioner present? Yes. Mm-hmm. So, in September 2025, a chain link fence was erected between 405 and 409 East 4th Street, two non-contributing properties in the Restaurant Row Historic District. While the fence meets planning code for the area, and I believe the petitioner had spoken with the planning department before this was brought to my attention, I was brought to the attention of staff that a COA had not been issued prior to construction. You'll see that there's a letter from the petitioner in the packet, which I hope you had a chance to read. Mr. Kamen, is there anything you'd like to add? Okay. Staff recommends approval of COA 2571. While the Greater Restaurant Row Historic District guidelines do not offer specific guidelines for fences not located at the front of a property or associated with outdoor seating area. This new fence is nevertheless visible from the public right-of-way. It is understandable then that this may lead to some confusion over whether or not this alteration would be subject to commission review. Considering that this proposed fence does not obstruct the street-facing facade of the building on either side, and that chain link fences are common in this district, staff recommends a retroactive approval.
All right, thank you, Noah. Any comments from the public? All right, Jack, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I don't know if I can phrase it as a question, but the gentleman says he wasn't told by any other city department that he needed to get a C of A. And he didn't think that, given the location and type of buildings involved, it might require one. I guess I have to ask, just no one along the line said anything about needing a COA for this fence. If that's the case, then I'm inclined to be quite lenient about the retroactive approval of the fence. That's question and comment at the same time.
Do you have any other information about the, I guess, interaction with the planning department?
I met with the planning department a couple times after this was brought to my attention. They have met with the petitioner beforehand. I don't believe that they were looking at the district guidelines, which again is somewhat confusingly phrased. I think the question was more whether or not this would count as visible from the public right-of-way, because it's not on a street-facing facade, and that space between the two buildings is not an alley, even though there's an alley in the rear of the building, behind the lot.
Melody, any questions?
No.
Bernard?
Firstly, is it visible from the street? Right.
Oh, yes.
So does it matter whether it's on the street-facing side of the building, or is it attached to the building and is visible from the street? What's the standard?
Well, it is visible from the public right-of-way, which is why there needs to be review. Where some of the confusion comes from is in the district guidelines. On the guidelines that they have relating to fences, they say that a fence should not obscure the street-facing facade of a building, which is where the language about street-facing facade comes in. Also, the section on fencing is tied into the area on outdoor seating and fencing areas. So.
Okay, so just a question. If the guidelines for the district does not speak to a thing, do you still need a COA even if it's visible from the public right of way?
I'm gonna see if I can find the language here. Okay, so the guidelines do apply to all exterior alterations visible from the public right of way, including new construction of principal or accessory structures or other structures visible subject to view from the public right of way.
Okay, so even though it doesn't speak to fences, it is a structure that's visible from the
Yeah.
public right of way. My next question would be, is the petitioner here?
Yeah.
Yes. How long have you owned the property?
I think around 14 years, maybe a little bit more.
Right, and in 14 years, you've never come across anything that would lead you to believe, well, to know that you're in a historic district.
No, and I don't want to throw my architect under the bus, but we're pretty careful. I don't want to mention his name, but I had the architect look into it. He said, you're good. Planning, as Noah said you don't need a permit. And I even met with Tim Clapp to make sure that there was no fire escape hazards and this and that. So I try to be careful, but that's what happened. If somebody would have said, come here, I would have. And this is only the second time we've been in business, this our, let me see, 49th year, maybe, no, 50, no, it's 51st year, something like that. And I've only been, I think, in front of you guys once, and it happened to be this year too, because we had at First Street, 1017 East First Street, the city hand said, fix something, and we fixed it. And I didn't know any better, and we came here. And we actually did it right, though. We fixed it nice. We had fixed it right.
Right, you see, whereas I could appreciate the first time you made an alteration and not recognizing that you're in a historic district. You came here and you went through the process. I would think that the second time you're making an alteration to a building, something would say to you, you know, let me make sure, because of this previous experience, let me just make sure that I don't have to do this thing again. That's my first point. My second point is, every year almost, I get something from hand in the mail about being in a historic district, you know, a little postcard, right? Almost, you send them out every year, right?
Yes.
And you've owned it for 14 years and you've never gotten a communication from hand, that little postcard that hand sends out that says, your property is in a historic district. You've never gotten one.
I don't know. Obviously, I don't remember one, but can I say one more thing?
Sure.
If it's in Elm Heights, our last case was in Elm Heights, we will check, because I know it's now historic designated, so I do know that. Here, like I said, we checked it. I would hope at some point either hand or city planning would bring it up when we inquire about things. It would make things a little bit easier. Because if we inquire, they're a body of the city. They are working in the same building, so it would have been nice for somebody to say, hey, you got a historic issue here.
You know, that's my last question.
Got it. Karen, question.
I don't have any questions.
Daniel. Drew.
No, I don't have any questions either.
I don't have any questions either. So would anybody like to make a motion?
Any questions online?
I already asked for questions
Oh, you
earlier.
did, and nobody's online. We have, yeah.
Somebody else pop up.
Motion to approve. I lost the COA.
25.
Yes. 25, COA 2571.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, Jack's a second. Okay, let's talk about it. Jack, do you have any comments?
No more comments.
Melody, do you have comments?
No.
Bernard?
Whereas I can understand that not everyone experiences the city is the same. I just, as a regular homeowner, just doing a repair on my home, came to find out really quickly two things. One, that I was in a historic district. And secondly, within Bloomington, the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. And I learned that really quickly, right? I got a permit to demolish a structure. And days later, I got a letter stating that the structure was in violation and I was going to be fined because the porch roof was falling. So, you know, and it was approved for demolition. The fire department came and wanted to do fire drills on the house because it was going to come down. So there are at least two departments in the government that knew that this house was slated for demolition. But Hand was sending me a letter stating that, oh, the porch is falling, so you're in violation and they're going to fine you. And I learned that within the first 3 years of living in Bloomington. I find it difficult that you can be a property owner in Bloomington
with two properties in historic districts, one of which you've owned for 14 years and had no idea that that property was in a historic district. I find that difficult. And well, I would certainly recommend that this be treated as a violation, and whatever sanctions that are seen fit to apply to the situation be applied. Sir, you've been here already. You've had the experience. Something should have said to you, hey, before I do this other thing, let me check with Han. Let me check with the HPC.
Karen?
Yeah, I'm done.
Okay, just want to make sure I didn't want to interrupt. Karen?
I don't have any problem with this going through, being approved, because, well, for several reasons. I think the nature of the placement of the fence on the alley and the guidelines between the position of it not being across the front. It's at the back. I had to look twice to even find it when I went to check it out. And I can see why somebody would say, you don't need to have this reviewed, and particularly with the guidelines being confusing. So I would not advise my colleagues to assign any kind of a violation, and would like to see it approved. It seems a great solution, and it's nice and neat and tidy. It doesn't harm any adjacent structures. So that's all I have to say.
Daniel?
Yeah, I agree with what Jack said earlier and with what Karen said, so.
Drew?
Yeah, I'm kind of in that same agreement. While I have some agreement with what Bernard was saying, that there should be some way to find out, but he then also had other advisors stating that it wasn't going to be a problem, which then could lead to a lot of other miscommunications in that part. So the fact that it was done in a neat and orderly fashion along with the standards that it was required, I don't see a problem with it at all.
Okay. As for me, I think this speaks to something we've encountered a few times where someone talks to one part of hand and gets one answer, but it's not the right answer. And that seems like that happened again. So I feel like they were checking in with folks. And I was confused on the guidelines when I was reading them too, thinking that these sort of changes only applied to a historic structure with a conspicuous change. And this is a non-contributing structure. But there's another section where it talks about, well, actually it needs to, you also review a structure from a public way. So I was kind of misinterpreting what these things were. So I can understand where the petitioner is coming from on that. Okay, I think that's the end of the comments. So I think we're ready to vote.
Sure. There's a motion on the floor for COA 2571. It's been moved and seconded. We'll go ahead and take a vote. Jack Baker,
Yes.
Jeremy Hacker,
Yes.
Renard Cross,
Yes.
Melanie Dusner,
Yes.
Daniel Schlegel.
Yes.
That motion passes 5-0.
Thanks for coming in.
Good night.
All right, next up.
All right. Moving on to demolition delay. This is another item that we saw at the last meeting where the petitioner has told me that they will not be attending this meeting because they're still taking time to assess the structural stability of the limestone and structural steel loading dock at the site, and trying to figure out whether it might be moved to a different location at the site. So as they had mentioned in the previous meeting on October 9th, they would like to come back on November 13th.
Do we need to make a motion to move that? Or?
No, it'll automatically be continued.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right.
seemed to cut back the trees more. It's easier to see it now.
Yeah, I got some better pictures. I think
Yeah,
the one in the
pictures are
packet that you
better,
have here is a little clearer.
and if you walk by, it's much clearer.
Well, I'd rather them be fully prepared to talk to us than
Yeah.
muddle through something.
Okay.
So then next up is the designation.
Yes. Okay. So this item has been publicly noticed with an advertisement in the Herald Times more than 10 days prior to this meeting. This is for an item that was voted for designation at a previous commission meeting, and because of the requirement for one, having a map and an ordinance to send to city council, and two, for having, proper prior notice. There's going to be a second vote on forwarding the staff recommendation, map, and ordinance for 115 East 12th Street, the Ivan Adams House, to Bloomington City Council to vote for designation as a local historic district.
Okay. Just in terms of process for this, Noah will do the staff report first. We'll let the owners have any comments at that point. Then we'll open it up for public comment. We ask that people, when they're making their comments, limit your comments to 3 minutes in length. Then after that, we'll go through and do the commissioner questions. We'll take a motion, comments, and vote. Does that make sense? Okay. All right. Go ahead.
Okay. The property at 115 East 12th Street qualifies for local designation under the following highlighted criteria found in Ordinance 9520 of the Municipal Code. 1A, for having significant character, interest, or value as part of the development, heritage, or cultural characteristics of the city, state, or nation, or is associated with a person who has played a significant role in local, state, or national history. The case background: 115 East 12th Street is a gable front, one-story California bungalow that retains most of its original features but has been resided in white asbestos board. The house was first owned between 1927 and 1945 by Ivan Adams and his wife Gladys. Ivan ranked among the most prominent local stone carvers, whose work includes the Bloomington Courthouse World War II Memorial, the IU seal at Foster Quad Dorm, contributions to the columns and frieze on the Fine Arts Palace for the Chicago Century of Progress exhibition in 1933, the National Shrine of the Immaculate Conception in Washington, D.C., the 21-foot statue of Our Lady of Lourdes Hospital at Indian Hill in Camden, New Jersey, and various other statues of the Virgin Mary and Catholic saints for institutions around the country. A monumental statue of his marks the grave of Gladys and himself at Rose Hill Cemetery. Adams' Herald Telephone obituary in 1968 describes him as one of Monroe County's most famous stone carvers. And in 1977, local carver Ronald Wampler described him as one of the greatest stone carvers in the area I've ever known. After Adams moved out, the house was rented out for the next 30 years to a number of tenants, most of whom did not stay longer than several years. One of the most prominent occupants was Robert Quirk, a professor of Mexican history and editor of the American History Review. He was a recipient of the Frederick Jackson Turner Award for debut books by historians and lived at this location from 1955 through 1956. In 1977, the house was the first Bloomington residence of James and Susan Butler, founders of Butler Winery. From 1987 through 1991, the home was the residence of opera student Judith Barnes and visiting lecturer in Spanish Anthony Kerrigan. Kerrigan won the National Book Award in 1975 for his translation of Miguel de Unamuno's Agony of Christianity, and a senior fellowship in literature from the National Endowment of Humanities for a lifelong contribution to American letters in 1988. He was the first to translate the Spanish writings of Jorge Luis Borges into English and taught at both IU and Notre Dame while living at 115 East 12th Street. For a property to be eligible for listing under this criterion, several considerations must be met. Firstly, in most cases, the person associated with this property must have made their significant accomplishments at least 50 years ago. And secondly, the property must be associated with this period in their life or career. Anthony Kerrigan has been widely acknowledged for his contributions to Spanish literature. However, there are other properties associated with his career more than 50 years ago, so it would be difficult to make a case for designating the house in which he lived from 1987 to 1991. Susan and James Butler established one of the early southern Indiana wineries, as well as the Indiana Wine Grape Council. They left this house in 1982 when they established their own winery, and their contribution to local history is more closely associated with the Butler Winery property. Stonecarver Ivan Adams lived at this property for a good part of his productive career, while he participated in the carving of public and religious monuments, both locally and nationwide. He is locally recognized as one of the most prominent stone carvers in the southern Indiana limestone industry, particularly as the number of stone carvers dwindled post-war. He moved in 1946 to 2921 South Rogers Street during the later part of his career, where he built a house and workshop, neither of which is still standing. The exterior of the building at 115 East 12th Street has been fairly unaltered from its original appearance, and is an excellent example of a small 1920s California bungalow.
Do you need to read the ordinance?
I have not in the past.
Okay, okay. Anna, we don't need to read the full ordinance now, do we? No? Okay. All right, so property owners are here. Would you like to make a comment? The new property owners are here.
Hi, I'm John Butler. When this whole thing started out, this house was going to be demolished, and we've been fighting it ever since August. And the people who were going to demolish it decided that they didn't want to deal with us anymore, and so they decided to sell the property to us. So now we're the owners, unlike the guy from the Gillette commercial. I like the razor so much I bought the company. So we're very excited to own the property. We are very excited to get it designated. We think it is a wonderful example of Bloomington history, and we hope to have it preserved forever. And I think it's a monument to Ivan Adams, and it'd be great if we could preserve it in his memory. And to show that, greatness doesn't have to come from granite countertops, that, a modest structure can produce a wonderful resident. That's my statement.
All right, excellent. Thank you very much. So next up, we'll have public comment. I think we'll start with the room first, and then we'll go online just to keep it orderly. I ask that you keep your comments to 3 minutes. We'll time it up here, and we'll let you know when your time's up. So does anybody in the room want to make any additional comments? All right, go ahead. State your name for the record. And
my name is James Ford. I live a few doors down from this house. I'm very excited that there might be a historic building designated on my street, and I'm excited to learn more about Ivan Adams, and I'm hoping that one day we can acquire something that he actually made and install it in the house so that visitors can learn about him and see his works.
that's it. All right. Anybody else in the room have any other comments they'd like to add? State your name.
Steve Ball. 1981, I bought the house 2 doors west, and the houses were needing some work, And over the decades, I've seen this done. Oh, I wish I'd have taken pictures of what it looks like compared to back then. And the houses are all very similar along the way. And I thought it would just be kind of an eyesore if this was gone and some kind of a thing, It wouldn't be like this thing. So I'm happy to be here to support 115.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Tonda, do we have anybody online who wants to say anything?
We have Judith Barnes online. I'm not sure if she wishes to speak or not. She is unmuted.
Judith, do you want to say anything?
Sure, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I just want to say that I'm delighted that the house is being considered for designation, and I want to thank everybody on the commission and everybody in the neighborhood and the Butlers who have really brought this movement forward. And Also to say that I had no idea that an illustrious sculptor lived in the house, and it's completely delightful. And as a sculptor myself, I feel a kind of a kinship. And so thank you, everyone. I just wanted to, although I don't have a vote, I just want to say that that I'm thrilled that it's being considered. And would like to correct the record that we lived in the house until 93, not 91. Well, my husband, Anthony Kerrigan, died in the house in 91, but I lived there till 93.
Okay, thank you, Judith.
That's all. Thanks, everyone.
Do we have anybody else online?
We do not.
Okay, seeing as that, we'll turn to the commissioners for questions. Jack, do you have questions?
First question would be, what form would a motion take? A recommendation to forward to the common council?
Make a motion to recommend, and you should read the address for historic designation to the common council.
All right. Yeah, my comment is that I think this, if this would be passed by the common council, it would serve as a sign that things can be done with these houses. Largely, nothing has happened good, and this is something that, if this, even this single house stands out in a square in protected, one small protected area in town, I think it sends a signal that things can be done and times are changing, and maybe would encourage people that are otherwise uninterested to be interested in these houses and to want to preserve them, and perhaps to even form neighborhood groups, neighborhood associations for protection. Once they really understand the danger to these neighborhoods by a single house being taken out, or it used to be before we had neighborhood associations in this town, it was in the 90s, you could get a permit and take a house down in 2-3 days. It happened fairly commonly, and that's why a number of neighborhood associations were formed, and I believe that's why we have demolition delay today. There were a couple of very well-known homes that were taken down that displeased a lot of people in town and caused demolition delay to come along. And it's been important. We talk about neighborhood rules sometimes infringing perhaps on the neighbors, but at the same time, those rules were written by people in those neighborhoods, and they are protecting themselves. Where we don't have good protection has been these little outlying homes that are not part of other preservation groups. So this could send, I think, a good signal.
All right, so question and comment from Jack. Question, Melody. Question, Renard. Karen.
I have a question for Noah. In your research on him, on Mr. Adams, did you find any reference, and there's often not much recorded about, just simple workers, right? But as to whether he went through an apprenticeship, a formal apprenticeship training as a sculptor, there exists those kinds of things in the stone industry, but a lot of people just kind of worked around.
He had gotten started as, unfortunately, I don't remember which mill. I think it may have even been, I'm gonna turn back to our other demo delay, I think it was the mill down the street. That, we still have this remaining structure from Johnny's Stone Company. So we had started there, just cutting blocks to size, and then moved fairly quickly on to sculpting. But who specifically he trained under, I don't know.
Okay.
He worked to some extent with Harry Donato, but who was a little older than him and a little more well-known in Bloomington, but they were more of contemporaries.
Thank you.
Daniel, questions?
No questions.
Drew, questions?
No questions.
I don't have any questions, so I will entertain a motion.
I'll move we approve the designation of 2503.
Recommend it for
Oh, sorry.
historic designation of the Common Council.
That one too.
Is there a second? So Melody.
Please.
All right, let's discuss this. Jack, anything else you want to add?
I've discussed.
Thought so. Melody.
No, nothing I need to add.
Renard.
Well, I'm in full support for designating this house and preserving it as a historic structure. You know, I'd like to think of it as Bloomington's own little east wing that we're. It doesn't balance the scale, but I think we should strike one back for the good guys.
Sure. Karen.
Well, I'm in favor of it because the limestone industry was so fundamental to Bloomington's history and economic development and contributions across the country. And to my knowledge, there's not any, maybe I'm wrong, but there's no formal recognition of any particular stone worker. Sometimes companies get mentioned. I did my master's thesis on a local stone worker. He was not a sculptor, and he's talked to me about older sculptors and, you know, people working in the industry and how it, and that knowledge just doesn't get out to people. And I would like to see the city of Bloomington recognize a person like this who has made a mark across the country as well as contributed to the industry here.
Okay.
One, I want to say congratulations on being the new owners. That's much easier to work with. And I just want to say, I want to echo what Karen and Jack had said. I agree with your comments. Those were great. So.
Drew.
No other comments.
I think for me, I think the most appropriate way to honor this gentleman would be with a historical marker where he did his work next to one of his monuments or something else that he built. With that said, I will be supporting this going forward. All right. That brings us to the end of the comments, so I think we're ready for a vote.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor for HD 2503, which has been moved and seconded to designate, or to send to council for historical designation. We'll go ahead and take a vote. Jack Baker,
Yes.
Jeremy Hacker,
Yes.
Reynard Cross, Melanie Dusner,
Yes.
Daniel Schlegel,
Yes.
and that motion passes 5-0-0.
Do I need to read the thing again? The full text of this? I read it last time. Do I need to read it again?
For the forwarding to council.
Yeah, you know what, go ahead and read it into
Okay,
the record again.
make it official. All right. Today, the HBC declares that the property located at 115 East 12th Street meets the following criteria for local designation referred to in the staff report. 1A, has historic character, interest, or value as part of the development, heritage, or cultural characteristics of the city, state, or nation, or is associated with a person who played a significant role in local, state, or national history. Consequently, the HBC recommends its historic designation under Title 8 of the Bloomington Municipal Code to the Common Council with the attached map, which is in the report. And it's already under interim protection.
Yes,
So we don't need to do that part. Okay. Excellent. So we're done with that. So congratulations.
Thank you.
It'll go to the Common Council next. Next up, we have old business violations.
Yes. So as far as violations, there was question over, well, one, the fence on 4th Street, which has just been resolved. There's also the ongoing conversation about the windows at 702 East Kirkwood. Anna and I have both recommended that a fine be levied, so we've written up a letter to be sent out for that.
And that was what was discussed at the last
Yes.
meeting that was denied.
Yeah.
Okay.
One of the petitioners has since emailed me back saying that a friend of hers in town was going to drop off some subsequent application. I haven't seen that yet. I got this email today, but we have drafted a letter for levying a fine. Are there any other violations people want to bring up?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
All right, that moves us on to new business. Oh, forgot to turn that off. Anybody have any new business they'd like to discuss? All right, hearing none. Are there any final public comments that anybody would like to share?
There's a
Okay.
A question, can I have a question?
Yeah.
I'm curious how one looks back in the records to find out how a particular demolition delay ended up going forward or not. I've looked through agendas and meetings, I can't find any information on a particular one. Is there a database or is there something I have to send to somebody about it?
I do keep a log of cases that come to HPC meetings. So that includes demo delays, COAs, designations, and some other things.
So an email to you about
Sure.
one particular one?
Mhm. Yeah.
And then another thing you can do is, once you get that, like a specific meeting set, you can view the recording online if it's a more recent meeting and you can see the discussion that's happened.
Nice.
Sorry, that's a follow-on question. Is the log that you keep just for you, or did it precede you?
Gloria started it. There may have been, I think there were some attempts at doing it before her, but the furthest back I have consistent log is 2023.
Okay. Any other public comments? All right, hearing none.
Well, we have commissioner comments before.
Oh, I
public
had asked for commissioner comments, I thought.
comments.
Sorry.
And I think you went new business. and then
Oh,
public
apologies.
comments.
All right, commissioner comments, sorry.
Well, yeah, I'd just like to make something clear about the issue with 212. I didn't have a problem with the fence. I mean, had it come in with a normal COA, I wouldn't even have batted an eye. But, you know, for persons who have been here longer than a day, you'd know that I have an issue with retroactive COAs. And I have a particular issue with retroactive COAs in cases like this where the gentleman came to us before. And I have a recollection of saying, okay, fine, the next time you're going to make an alteration to a building, speak to, I'm not sure if you were here, it could have been Gloria.
No, this was
No, it was-
Right, I said, check with the person at hand. Because he came with the same story. Oh, I checked with this and I didn't hear anything from that and so on. And I'm saying, okay, but there is one authority that you will get the definitive answer on historic properties. And he came and he it was the same story as the previous time. And I know if I stay here long enough, I'm gonna see him come back with the same story again, and we're gonna fall for it as a commission. At what point do we say you have a responsibility as a property owner? How do you own a property for 14 years and not know that that property is in a historic district? I was trying not to use certain adjectives to describe my feelings about that position that he held. But that is ridiculous. That is the height of irresponsibility. And we cannot continue to let people come before us and get away with, oh, well, you know, planning this and, well, zoning that. 14 years he owned it, and this is not the first time he's been here. That's it.
Okay. Any other comments from the commissioners? Okay, did I miss anything else? Thank you for bearing with me and sharing this today. Hopefully I did Sam proud. So with that, this meeting is adjourned.